Hello and welcome to chapter 17 of this Flutter course. In the previous chapters, we've been working quite a lot with some of the basics of Flutter, for instance, stateful, stateless widgets. We've been looking at column, we've been looking at text button and many other widgets and kind of trying to get our screens presentable to the user. At the same time, we've been working on the functionality of the application, such as logging in, registering, verifying email, etc. We have a lot to work on, and we're going to break it down by first starting to work on the link between the login and the register view, as you can see here. At the moment, I'm going to bring up the code the way we left it in the previous chapter. As you can see here in the main function, in our homepage widget. Also, let me change the structure on the of the different views on the screen so you can see a little bit better. So if I do a hot restart here, you can see that when the connection state is done, when the Firebase application is initialized, we're displaying the login view here without basically having the option to go to any other screen from here. So if I want to send the user to the register view, then I have to change this code right here and say, okay, now you have to go to register view. So that's why we need a link between these two views. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the screen just because I need to actually ensure that I tick the items that I've already explained. So we need to make sure that when a user is on the login screen, even if that's the first screen that we always display to the user, which is not, but even if it was, we need to be able to let the user to go from the login screen to the register view and also from register view back to the login screen. So that's what we're going to do in this chapter. So as the first item that we have to tackle is to go to our login view and add a button that will send us to the register view. So I'm going to open up, I'm going to bring it here, make the screen a little bit smaller here. So let's go to our login view, which I can see is actually modified. Yeah, that's okay actually. And what we need here, you can see we have a text button that is for our login view, a login button. And as you can see, the caption says add a text button to login view to send us to register view. So right after this text button, let's create a new text button. And I'm going to bring it a little bit higher so you can see. I'm going to say text button. Remember, child parameter always has to be it should be the last parameter. So I'm going to say unpressed, ask Visual Studio Code to complete it for me. And then I'm going to say child, the text is going to say, what should it say? Should it say not registered yet? And we say register here, something like this. I make it a constant, okay? And I'm going to save this, and you can see now that we have a little button here that says not registered yet, register here. Okay, so that part is done, but the button at the moment, the way it is right now, it's not doing anything. So we need to address that. But before we could do that, we need to talk about named routes. You see, in the previous exercise or in the previous chapter, we use Navigator and dot of context and push, and then we created a material page route. That may have all been kind of like alien to you and you didn't really know what was happening, and that's okay. You will get to know it more and more as we go through the various chapters in this course. But what we need to do here is to first talk about what a route is and what a named route is. And I've actually put a link to a documentation here for you that we can go. I'm going to bring up my web browser and I'm going to create a new window. And I'm going to say Flutter named routes, which is going to end up in the exact same link that you can see there. And it says here in the navigate to a new screenplay recipe. However, if you need to navigate to the same screen, actually, it wasn't such a great description, to be honest with you. I was kind of expecting a little bit of better description, but maybe I can do that myself instead of you having to look at this. And I can see, to be honest with you, this web page is a part of a cookbook, which kind of is probably all like linked together. So in order for you to understand this page, you actually have to go to this link and read that and then see, and then this would be the continuation. So I just put the link here just so you have it as reference. But I'm going to explain that myself here now. If we go back to where we had the named route, let's see, where did we have the named route when we pushed it? It was quite a bit before this. If I can undo here. So this is something called an anonymous route. So sorry about that. I said named route, but this is an anonymous route. So a route is, as its name indicates in Flutter, it's a journey that has a start and an end. So it starts from a view and it ends in a view. Okay, that's a route. Um, However, there are two types of routes that you can create in Flutter. Either you do your routes, either you go to a new screen to your destination from the current screen without providing any sort of information about what this route actually means to your application. So it's an anonymous route. You're doing it in line. You're not telling Flutter about this route beforehand. So as the user presses the button, or for instance, in this case, as the user ends up in the home page and the future builder initializes Firebase, upon the connection state done, meaning that the initialization of Firebase is complete, then we were pushing the verify email view on the screen, and then we fixed it by doing all this code. So that was an anonymous route. You're doing it in place. As the done connection state happens, then we were pushing a new route in our navigator. But a named route is the exact same thing that we write like we were doing before, but you tell Flutter about that route before, so that when your application is created and initialized and the Flutter engine starts, it knows that there is a route with the name XYZ, for instance, or foobar baz, whatever you want to define, and it goes to a certain screen. Okay, so that is the difference between an anonymous route and a named route, in that, as its name indicates, a named route is a route that has a name. So you tell Flutter that associate this particular name as a type of string to this route. Okay, I'm going to take it here in my notes that we've talked about that. So what we need to do now is to define two routes for our application. One called /login/ and the other one is called /register. Okay, so let me just go and ensure that I'm bringing those routes correctly. So what I'm going to do here, and you need to do as well, is to go to your main function. And at the moment, we have a title for our material app and a theme data, and then a home here. But what you also have is a parameter called routes. Okay, so let's go and say we want to create these routes. And you can see here it says routes, its value is a map of string and a builder function for the values of those string keys. So it's a little bit strange. It's a map whose keys are strings and values are functions that take in a build context, sorry about that, and return a widget. So it's a little bit of a, is like, it may be a paradigm shift in your head, but these things do exist. And I've also created my own classes that kind of expect this kind of parameter. So let's go into routes and say, okay, now we have routes. As you know, this is how we create a map. Map is a list of key value pairs, or map entries as they're called in Flutter. And then what we need to do here is, I'm sorry, but I'll just move some code around. I have 3 screens here, so I kind of have to manage those screens at the same time I'm explaining things. So what we're gonna do here is to define 2 routes /login. All right, and remember the value of the value of every key inside this routes needs to be a function. You see, it's a function that returns a widget and it takes a build context inside. So in here, what we're going to do is say we have a context, and we return, login/, we return the login view. All right. So we say we have a route called /login/, and when that route is used, it returns the login view, an instance of the login view. Now we need to do the exact same thing, but for register. So I'm going to copy this, and here, just going to say register, and instead return the register view, which we haven't imported into our main Dart file. And you can remedy that by pressing Command on Mac or Control on Windows and Linux, and then say import register view. Okay, that's that. I'm gonna have a look at my notes a little bit. So what we need to do now, I've already explained that. Okay, in login view. All right. So what we need to do now is to go from login to the register view. And as you can see, I've explained it here in the caption that this will actually cause an error, but we will fix this error as we go forward. Okay. So in this register view, in this in our login view, so let's go to the login view, we have this button right here. And what we need to do is just to ensure that by pressing that, we can go to the correct place. And I think I brought up the caption, and you can see that we need to use Navigator of context push named and remove until. And this is a kind of a peculiar call, because what it essentially does is, as you can see right now on the screen, we have the login. We basically, the way we've created things at the moment is that we have the home view, which is a widget, and then depending on the state of, actually no, not depending on anything, we're literally just hard coding login view to be returned inside this. Okay, so we have the home widget, and then inside this home widget we're inserting the contents of login view. So login view and home page are kind of like displayed on top of each other. uh, this homepage has the scaffold, whereas the login view doesn't have any scaffold, and it's just a column at the moment. If you remember, we can go back to login view so you can see that it's just a column. Okay, so that's the structure currently. By doing this command that I'm providing you here, Navigator of context push name and remove until, what is going to happen is that, as its name indicates, is going to remove everything before it pushes this new route. So is what we're basically saying here is that by pressing the not registered yet button and register here, we're going to nuke this screen, remove it completely from the screen, and replace it by this new widget that we're returning. Okay, so let's go to our login view. In this button here, into the login view, sorry, in the not registered yet button, we say Navigator of context and remove until here. Push and remove until. Push named and remove until. And in here, now we need to display our register route, and we refer to that using its name. So let's go and fix that now. So we say here slash register, and put the false there as it is, and you can see, you can get documentation about this, and there's a predicate here that returns true or false, and it says push the route with the given name onto the navigator and then remove all the previous routes until the predicate returns true. And at the moment we're just saying return false, meaning remove everything from the route and just go to the register view. So just leave this as false right now. Okay, and this is actually going to cause a problem, and you will see that soon. I'm going to hot restart just in case, and we go here to our login view, and I'm going to press the not registered button here, and boom, and you can see now, that's actually great that we're getting this error. This is exactly what I'd expected. So what is happening here is that we're removing everything that's on the screen and pushing a route to the screen that has no scaffold. So this is the problem that you can see on the screen, that yeah, I can't just display a column on the screen without anything around it. So we need kind of a scaffold. And that is what this caption also is saying at the bottom left of the screen, as I'm showing you here. I'll check some items in my screen. So as the next thing, what we need to do now is to go to our register view, which is what we're pushing here, and make sure that our register view now has all of a sudden a scaffold. All right, so let's go to lib here and register view. Gonna remove this project explorer here. At the moment we're returning a column. What I'm gonna do is gonna command click on Mac or control click on Linux and Windows and say wrap with widget, and then call this widget scaffold, and just say scaffold body, and for the app bar, create a new app bar, and for its title, say text, and this is the register view. or just say register with constants. Okay, we're just going to leave it like that. I'm just going to double check in my notes to make sure that's what I had intended for the register view to actually be called. Yes, I can see that it was called register as well there. Great. So we have that now, and you can see now we're in the register view and there is no error. I'm going to do a hot restart, and we go here again, and now I'm going to press the not registered yet button, and you can see we are going to the register view. Okay. So now we have a good connection between the login view to the register view, but there is no connection backwards. There's no connection from the register view to the login view. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Just as we did, I'm going to take some items in my notes as well. So just as we did in the login view, that I'm going to hot restart so you just remember, you can be reminded of what we did. We had a login view, a login button, and we added a new item to go from login to register. But also we want to make sure that if you are already registered and you ended up on the screen, then you can go back to the login view. Okay, so let's do something similar here in our register view. And at the end of the register button here, let's create a new one, and we say text button. And on pressed, I'm going to get help from Visual Studio Code to create that function signature. And then I'm going to say child is a text that says, what should we say? Already registered, log in here, like this, okay, as a constant. And I comma here, so we get the formatting in place. And now you can see the register view also has a button that says, if you're already registered, then log in here. And the login view has not registered yet, register here. So now we have to program this. And as you saw in the login view, we had this functionality navigator of push name, blah, blah. Let's copy that functionality from the login view and bring it into the register view under already registered button there. And instead of going to registered name route, we're going to go to the login name route. Okay. And that hot reload, you don't have to hot restart. Gonna press this button. And actually, this is really great. And that's the same point that I had here. So link this. Okay. So I've talked about that. I'm gonna just take some items in my notes to make sure that I've covered all the grounds that I prepared for covering, basically. So you can see this is the exact same error that we had in the previous screen, or in the previous situation, that our register view didn't have a scaffold, because we went from login view and to the register view, and the register view didn't have a scaffold, so we created a scaffold here, if you remember. Okay, but if you go to the login view, you can see the login view still returns a column. And the reason this has been working so far is that because our homepage had a scaffold. Do you remember here? Homepage had a scaffold, and the contents of login view have so far just been injected into the body of our homepage. And that's the reason, if you hot restart your application, you come to this beautiful home screen. It says home, and then you have the login view right here. Okay. So what we need now is, if you remember from the previous chapter, we removed the scaffold from the login and the register, and now we're putting them back. But I kind of want you to understand the reasoning behind why I'm doing things. I don't want you to think that everything's perfect from the beginning, because for me, at least, when things are done perfectly in the beginning, I always question, like, what if this thing wasn't there? And I'm just trying to make sure that we remedy these things. So you go through the entire journey, you see what's wrong and how we can fix it, instead of just me presenting to you the exact right way of doing things. So from the beginning, let's go to our login view and make sure we do the same thing that we did with register view, and add a scaffold. So let's go in here and add a scaffold. So I'm gonna click on it. Sorry, I'm gonna press Command and dot on it on Mac, or Control dot on Linux and Windows, and you say wrap with widget, and just say your widget is called scaffold. Scaffold, unfortunately, doesn't have a child parameter, so it has a body. So change that parameter to body, and let's create an app bar for it. Then we say app bar, and it has a title, and we say const text, and in here we just say login. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, I mean, we've now added the scaffold, and as the caption here is telling you, it says, while login view is being embedded into homepage, this isn't good. So now what we need to do is to go to the next section, which is we need to remove now the scaffold from our main Dart or from the homepage, because for right now, the login view is being embedded into homepage, but that isn't really good enough. So we can't have login view with its own scaffold being embedded inside a homepage that already has a scaffold. So what we need to do is to remove the scaffold from our homepage. Let's see if we can do that. And it doesn't seem like it's working. So I'm going to go and say that I'm going to grab the future builder. Okay. And this is what you need to also do. Grab the entire future builder. And instead of returning the scaffold, just return your future builder, just like I'm doing here. All right. There's a lot of information. And also, let's make sure that our verify email view also has a scaffold, because this is what we need right now. We need all our views to have a scaffold. So I'm going to embed our verify email views columns as well inside a scaffold. So wrap with widget, and let's say scaffold. There is no child in scaffold. Remember, there is a body, and then we say app bar is an app bar, title, const text, and we say verify email, something like this. Okay. Good. Now, if I command S in order to save all these changes, we're going to get an error, hopefully, which we didn't. And that's also okay. It's probably because we actually fixed homepage, so it doesn't have a scaffold. That's why we're not getting the error. So that is really good. I've also explained that then. So let's just make sure that the connection is working between these two screens. So login view is there. You can see there's no home page anymore displayed here. If you remember from before this refactoring, then when we showed the login view, then there was the home page's app bar displayed on the screen. But home page right now is just a future builder that returns other things such as a text of loading or the login view. And also here, I noticed that instead of loading, what we could do is to display a circular progress indicator. This is a great widget if you're just doing some sort of a loading that may not immediately have an end. So what circular progress indicator does, it just shows like a loading indicator. We could actually comment all of this code out and just return the circular progress indicator, and comment the switch out as well, and then press Command S, so you actually see how it looks like. It's ginormous at the moment because there's no scaffold around it. But if you had scaffold, everything put in place, then you would see the circular progress indicator actually displayed correctly on the screen. So let's go back, Command S, so we see the login screen or the login view, and the connection between those screens is working as well. The next thing we need to do is to, at the moment, you see we have our login view and the registry view. So they're in their own files, but in the main Dart file, we've kind of forgotten, or maybe not forgotten, we just haven't had the time to do that. We have the verify email view still rightly, like it's just displayed or it's coded in the main Dart file. So what we need to do is just to create an own file for it, and we call it verify email view. Okay, so go to views here and right click on it, new file, and say verify email view.dart. Okay, grab the code from verify email view here and paste it, or cut it basically, and just place it here and make sure all the imports are in place. I've already explained in previous chapters how we need to fix imports, so I'm not going to go into so much detail about how imports work and how we should do that, because I think if you've already gone through the chapters chronologically, then this is like obvious for you how to fix it. So it kind of feels like if I try to over explain all these things over and over again, the people who are watching this course chronologically from the beginning to end, they're kind of gonna get bored. So in the interest of not boring actual people who are watching things, I'm not gonna over explain. So there we go. That is fixed. And also let's make sure that we import Firebase auth as well, so that error goes away. Save, just make sure that we do a hot restart as well, just making sure everything's working as expected, and it does. So what we need to do now, also in the interest of following through with the plan of being a good software developer, what we talked about, not in the previous chapter, but I think it was in chapter, let's see, it was in chapter 15, I believe, where we talked about Git and GitHub. Now we've done a lot of code. Things are working great. Let's commit our code. Okay. So as we had, if I bring up the terminal here, I'm going to do this so you see a little bit better. Going to bring up terminal. And let's go to our terminal here. I can see strcpy is running in this terminal. So I'm going to create a new terminal here. And I'm going to just say git log. And you can see we had the initial commit. And that was step one. All right. So because we tagged it as a step one, you see here. So what we do, let's just get git status. And we see that we've done a lot of work. I'm going to git add all the files to the staging area, remember, from the git chapter. And then let me also make this a little bit bigger so you can see it better. Okay, then I'm going to commit, and I'm going to say git commit step 2, like this. Okay. And also, actually, before we do that, I believe we've missed a few things, perhaps. I'm going to just look a little bit in my notes just to make sure that I'm not missing things before we continue. If I look at... yeah, so what we need to actually, there's one thing we missed here at the moment. What we're doing is saying that, okay, just go to the login view. But one thing that we missed is to ensure that we go to the correct view, okay? So what we're going to do is we say, we first get the current user. So we say, here's the user. And if the user is not null here, and we put an else statement here as well. So if the user is not null, then we say, okay, if user email verified, so then we just say print email is verified, or we just return text email is verified, something like this. Okay, let's go back to the print. So before we actually do all of this, maybe I should explain why we're doing this. So at the moment, or before we started with this exercise right here, whenever the application was running, we were just going directly to the login screen. But what we need to do now is to, now that we have 3 screens, we have the login view, register view, and also the verify email view. Is that what we call it? Verify email view? Yeah. We need to make sure that we're actually accommodating these various conditions into returning the correct widget. So here we're saying that if the user's email is verified, let's then say, just say email is verified. Okay. And we can actually return maybe even a, and we'll return something. So yeah, let's do that. So we will return text done, something like that. Okay. So if the email is verified, we just say that your email is verified, but the user doesn't see that. If the email is not verified, we will basically return verify email view. Okay. So that's us basically saying that, yeah, you need to verify your email. That's if user is not null. Now, if the user is null, then we send you to the login view. So let's go in here in the else statement. We say return login view as a constant. All right. So I think that should do it, to be honest with you. Return const, return login view. So we can remove all of this from here. Boom. So let's review it. Upon Firebase initialization being done successfully, we are going to check for the current user. If there is a user, we're going to check if the email is verified. If email is verified, right now we're just going to say print email is verified. And since we're not returning anything in here, the code is going to fall through to line 48 here, which in turn then returns just a text done. Okay, so if you have a logged in user, if you have a user who's log into the application and the email is verified, all the user is going to see is just a text done. All right. But if you have a user in the application whose email is not verified, that user is going to see the verified email view. If you don't have a user with Firebase, so that user is not logged in, then we're going to display the login view. All right. A lot of information. I understand this may be a little bit frustrating. So now I'm going to hot restart, and what you can see here is just a very ugly text done displayed on the screen. This means the current user in the application is logged in and the email is verified. And it is very ugly, I understand, but you need to also understand the reason why this is ugly at the moment. And that is what happens if you do not tell Flutter how things need to be rendered. And since our homepage has a future builder and nothing else surrounding it, there's no scaffold, there's nothing, it's just a text widget. That's Flutter telling you, okay, I don't even know how to render things anymore. I don't know what theme you're using. I don't know the font size. I don't know the default font color. So that's what happens if you don't surround your widgets with a scaffold or another material widget that knows how to render things, okay? Wow, a lot of information again. But I hope you're sticking with me here. Now that we've done that, we can go and commit. So let's have a look at our logs and look at the status. I'm going to change the structure or the layout of the screen so you see better. And now we see that after we did git add, we've also changed the main Dart file with these changes. So I'm going to git add that as well, all those changes. And I'm going to say git commit step 2. Okay. So now that's going to be committed, and we're also going to push the commit. And additionally, we need to tag it, okay? Because if you remember, if you look at the logs, the first commit that we did here, it was tagged as step 1. Now we've committed step 2, but we haven't tagged it. So let's go tag it. I'm going to say git tag step 2. And then you need to push your tags with git push -- tags. And that creates the step 2 tag as well for you. Okay. I understand that was a lot of information, but I hope you could stick with me and go through all these steps so that we're ready basically for the next chapter. All right. And also, before continuing with the next chapter, just ensure that you're logged in, because in the next chapter, we're actually going to work on the log out. So I can see also I've planned a lot of information in that chapter for you. So there's lots and lots and lots of things to do. So it's a very exciting chapter, actually, the next chapter. But before you continue with that, just ensure that you go to the login screen and ensure that you log in with a user and you just see this ugly done button here, okay? And as I mentioned, in the next chapter, we're going to talk about displaying a simple interface to the users who are logged in, and also allow those logged in users to log out. So get some coffee, tea if you want to, or whatever refreshments you want. And I'll see you in the next chapter.